There's a new search to identify the last victim of the man known as the Happy Face Killer. I spoke with Riverside County District Attorney Mike Hestron about why he's asking for the public's help more than 30 years after that woman became the serial killer's 8th victim. Mike, first off, for people who are not familiar with the Happy Face Killer, who was he?
His name was Keith Hunter Jesperson, and he's known as the Happy Face Killer, not by anything that was related to the manner of his crimes or the way he killed the victims. It was just that in his letters, where he did many confessions, where he would send to the media and police, he would always, I don't want to say always, he would at least sometimes put a happy face near his name. So he just became known as the Happy Face Killer. It was a moniker that stuck. And he killed 8 women that we know of for sure. And this individual is the last unidentified victim of the 8. And when I say for sure, he actually has claimed at different times that he killed more than just the 8. In fact, quite a bit more.
And this woman, you referred to her as Claudia.
Yes.
You were trying to find any sort of DNA connection to help identify her.
Well, more than that, we're trying to find any kind of key or missing piece of information that might help us, actually identify who she was. So we call her Claudia, but that's from Jesperson. And he says that he picked up a hitchhiker back in 1992, just south of Victorville. He was a long haul trucker. So he tells police that she got into his truck and said her name was Claudia. So 2 things there. He could be lying, he could be mistaken, or she might have given him a false name. So we don't know for sure if her name was Claudia. That's just all we have to go on. So it could be. But from there, he took her south. She was on her way to Los Angeles, and he told her he was on his way to Arizona. And he told her essentially, I can take you as far as Cabazon. So she rode with him from the Victorville area to Cabazon. And at that point, he says she decided to ride with him on to Indio. There was a truck stop there that was very busy, and he said that he would take her that far. According to him, they got something to eat at that truck stop and then had an argument, and he murdered her in the cab of his big rig, and then drove on west towards Arizona, stopped off in Blythe, and dumped her body off the side of a road in Blythe, where her remains were discovered in August of 1992. Mr. Jesperson actually pled guilty to her murder and the other 7 women that he's been convicted now of murdering in the year 2010. And so this is an interesting case, Peter, because we don't typically, when we go to the public for help, we are asking for help to identify a suspect, either a rapist or a known killer. In this case, it's the opposite. We know who the killer is. We still haven't identified the victim. So it's different. The killer's not on the loose. He's in custody in Oregon, and he's facing multiple life terms. So very unlikely he's ever going to be out of prison. But it's still important to us to try to identify this victim and perhaps bring closure to any family or loved ones that she may have had.
Part 2 now of my interview with Riverside County District Attorney Mike Hestron, who is trying to identify the woman who was murdered by the Happy Face Killer in our region more than 30 years ago. So I'm curious, Mike, why now? Obviously, she was murdered more than 30 years ago. Why now are we trying to identify her?
So it's a great question. The reason is about a year, maybe a little bit more, a year ago, my office received a grant from the state to help us and to set up a cold case unit. So we've done that with the Sheriff's Department, and we've brought the resources of the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office together to investigate and solve cold case murders in our county. And there are quite a few of them that we haven't got to yet. But one of the things that we're able to do with those resources is to use advances in DNA technology. And we've used that in this case. So, for example, the DNA that we got from the victim's remains, we were able to upload some of that DNA, upload it to some of the public databases, and some of the databases that are online with, different historical DNA type sites. that people can voluntarily give their DNA and build their profiles. So in this case, we were able to find some of this victim's family members. So you might think, wow, then you've identified her. The problem is that, for example, we were able to find her biological father, and then we were able to identify some of her half siblings, but none of her biological father passed away. None of her half siblings knew of her existence. So, it's very likely that her biological father, he had a family, and this was not something that he shared with the family, that he had fathered another child.
Oh, this is heartbreaking. So then
It really
how
is.
do you identify somebody if the family isn't a connection in this case? How do you identify this person?
Well, what's interesting is on the paternal side, we know that her father, biological father, was living in the Ventura, Santa Barbara area around the time she would have been conceived. So we're hoping that maybe, with this information getting out, someone might see something in the package that we've put out, in the information we've put out, and it might ring a bell. Just any piece of information might help us. On the maternal side, the same thing, the same DNA technology. We've been able to isolate that her family tree comes from Louisiana, Texas area. And so again, if someone with roots in that area, maybe some connection to California, we don't know what will ring a bell, but at this point we are asking for the public's help.
And we do know that she was a blonde woman, medium-sized build, between 20 and 30.
That's right. She was between 20 and 30. Described by Jesperson as having sort of frizzy blonde hair, medium build, between 140, maybe 150 pounds, 5'6", 5'7", and then a tattoo on 2 little dots on the side of her thumb.
Well, hopefully someone out there has some information and can help identify this woman. All right, Mike, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Peter. Take care.